and bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please remain standing for the invocation, which will be delivered by Commander Rob Fashionett.
Eternal Father, strong to save. Today's military stands on the shoulders of giants. There are no larger giants than those 18-year-old men who stormed the beaches of Iwo Jima, where uncommon valor was a common virtue. Lord, many of those you took home to their eternal resting place in 1945. Today, we celebrate and remember with those who made it home and those who will never forget. Today, we say thank you for the freedoms that we have because of the ultimate price that was paid. Today, we say thank you for the service members around the world who are still fighting for our way of life. We say thank you for these men and women dedicated to supporting the service members of our military. Lord, be with the families that mourn. May their tears water flowers. May you give their hearts peace and their loved ones rest. May all that is said and done here today bring you glory and us together as a community.
I'm going to invite Treasurer Goldberg to come up and bring greetings. And I have to say, as I said earlier, not only a great treasurer, a great human being, has done a lot for veterans. So, Treasurer.
Well, it's truly an honor to be here today. And it's amazing how we're all back here together, which is the most important thing. Because although for terrible circumstances we were kept apart, to be able to honor the two of you and all members of the Marine Corps that sacrificed so much so that we all could be here today. I don't think there are very many kids, and this is something we have to teach more and more, that recognize that the world was at risk in World War II. And the sacrifices made at Iwo Jima, the number of people who were lost, which was enormous, were lost to save all of us, because there was never before a threat to democracy and freedom like we saw back then. And it is worth protecting today and ensuring those lessons are carried forward. So as soon as I heard that this event was going to take place in person, and also the wonderful people that we're honoring here today who are so worthy, I wanted to be here before all of you. I know that many people have heard before. My dad was in the National Guard, and he was a naval officer. We lost him this year, and in fact, some of the people from the Constitution honored him at his memorial service, and for that, I am thankful. He's missed very much, but he brought to me a respect and a knowledge of what those who are our service members do, not always in the big battles, but day to day to day. In fact, there are many who don't know how much the National Guard members did during COVID. and they were again willing to risk their health and their lives, because that's what all of you do. And it's for all of us, and it's for our country, and for our God. So with that, it's truly an honor to be here. And it means so much. And that's why it also means so much to me that veterans' benefits are in my office, because I am able to acknowledge in a financial way, which is necessary and needed, because let's not forget that our service members put their lives on the line. They do so at a financial risk to themselves and their families. And often people don't even think about that, but it's true. And so here in Massachusetts, we do think about that. And we've created ways to acknowledge it. And I told this story before also. But there was a young couple who came to my office. They were both in the service, and they both had 2 new little babies. And I was able to present them with 11 bonuses, which became the down payment on their house in Foxborough. So it's a small thing, but I'm so thrilled to be able to do it. And so consequently, we're honoring the Major General today. And the Major General didn't realize that he has a veteran's bonus check. So Major General. Surprise!
Thank you.
I'm going to get the camera from
Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Guess who wants a picture? 3 guesses.
Yep.
So this is for your combat service in the Persian Gulf War, the Global War on Terrorism, and the Southern Watch deployment.
Well, thank you.
And you look shocked.
Honestly, I always tell our troops, hey, make sure you sign up for this. I just never got around to doing it.
Well, anyway, you are now, you can take me out to dinner later.
Thank you so much, Treasurer. I greatly appreciate it. And the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to sign this. Does this come out purple?
It's not my pen.
It does?
It's okay.
In the spirit of jointness, the military, I'll sign this with this purple pen.
Yeah, it's a rich color.
And John, I'm going to donate this to the Semper Fidelis Society. And I will say, I finally made it for the first time since I've been in this position this past year to the Marine Corps birthday, and I never had so much fun in my life. I laughed, I cried when I saw those poor poolies come through, but I'll tell you, I had a great time, and like I said, I greatly admire the Marine Corps and the tradition we have here in Boston, the Marine Corps, so thanks so much.
Thank you, Treasurer. I have a little bit of mixed feelings that General Keefe made the check over to the Semper Fidelis Fund. I was going to say drinks are on him, but apparently that's not happening today. I am now going to ask that Bill Galvin, the Secretary of State, come up and bring greetings from the Commonwealth. The governor and lieutenant governor are out of state, so Secretary Galvin is now the acting governor for the Commonwealth, and he's bringing greetings from them. So.
Thank you very much. I too regard it as a great privilege to be here with you this day. And I am delighted that this ceremony, this very important ceremony, has returned to our capital, the State House, the center of our building right here, where it belongs. This State House has been the center of our government now for 2 centuries. Many famous people have walked through these halls. Many people who in their life were powerful. But I dare say no one more famous nor more deserving than the 2 gentlemen in front of me this morning. It is a both remarkable commemoration, and I'm so delighted to see you here. I think we all know of the valor of the Marine Corps and of the valor of those who fought in Iwo Jima and all of the persons who fought in World War II. I am the son of a veteran of World War II. He fought in the Philippines and Borneo. So I understand that war touched everyone in our country and our world. And what it fought for was to preserve the world of freedom that we've enjoyed for all these years since. Once again, by this commemoration, the Marine Corps League reminds us how important remembering is, but protecting is. And I think when we see the fight that's now going on in the Ukraine, it's people fighting for their freedom, fighting for their country, we begin to understand what these gentlemen here and those, both men and women who fought with them during World War II were fighting for. The right to remain free, the right to be Americans, the right to be citizens of the world. That was an extremely important battle. That battle is over, but clearly the war continues. The war for people who cherish freedom throughout the world continues. And by the Marine Corps League, remembering this commemoration, observing this commemoration, and commanding the attention of all of us to the importance of that fight, they do us a great service, and I'm very grateful for them for doing that. This building will always belong to those who cherish freedom, and it's never a prouder moment than to welcome them. Thank you very much, and on behalf of the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I welcome you. Thank you.
I want to acknowledge the military who is sitting here, but before that, I want to acknowledge Tom Kelly, who's sitting right over there. And Tom is a Medal of Honor recipient, so please stand. And right now, I want to talk about the military that fought on Iwo Jima. And the first one I want to recognize is Lieutenant Colonel Abelson from the 25th Marine Division, 25th Marines, 4th MARDIV. They fought on Iwo Jima. And so I wanted the Colonel just to be here, represent the 25th Marines. Thank you, Colonel. So, as many of you know, the Navy was there, and they had 450 or more ships. They provided naval gunfire, gun support. They had aircraft that were helping out. And representing the Navy is Commander Farrell, who's the commanding officer of the USS Constitution. Now, the U.S. Coast Guard was there. They brought supplies ashore to help replenish the Marines' supplies. They took wounded Marines off of Iwo Jima, brought them back out to the hospital ships. They even rescued Marines who were in the water floating there. They did a tremendous job, and Captain Amy Grable, the commanding officer, U.S. Coast Guard Base, Boston. I do want to say one thing about the Coast Guard. My uncle had been the chaplain at the Coast Guard Academy, and went down to visit him when I was maybe 10 or 11 years old. Got to stay in the barracks there for the officers, and they had pool tables, Coke machines, everything. So I thought, I can't wait to get older and join the military. But I got confused on the Semper Paratus versus Semper Fidelis, and I went with the Marines. So now, what a lot of people do not know was there was an Army National Guard regiment on Iwo Jima, 147th Regiment from the Ohio National Guard. They were part of what was called a CAM unit, Combined Army-Marine Unit. And they served throughout the Pacific. I think they were in every major battle. So, representing the National Guard is Brigadier General Paul Miner. General. So, having said that, I thought maybe you might want to hear from our Iwo Jima Marines. So, Ms., do you want to come up and say a few words? Or do you want to sit there? Okay. Then you've learned your lessons over the years. Larry, please come up here. You can see, yeah, you bring the chair with you. Thank you.
78 years ago. It's a long, long time. And I've lived a very happy life since Iwo Jima. At the time, I thought this was the worst thing that will ever happen to me. But as I thought about it, being on Iwo was the best thing that ever happened to me. It began when we left the island. I came home on an Army troop ship. I think it was the Santa Isabella or Santa Teresa. And the crew were all soldiers in the Army. And we were in our quarters, and about a day out of Iwo Jima, we ran into a typhoon. And a typhoon in the North Pacific is a substantial storm. And the ship the bow would go underwater and the stern would come out, and then it was breaching like a whale. When it rocked to the side, water came over the rails, on the other side, the water. And we were sitting in our quarters, and a crewman came in, a soldier, a young boy. And he said, "This ship could break up anytime. We could all drown." We said, "Yeah, that's true." He said, "Aren't you frightened?" And one of the guys says, "Well, no, nobody's shooting at us." So I learned to accept the problems of life, and I knew none would ever be as bad as what I'd already experienced. So when the roof leaked in a bad rainstorm, or the furnace quit in the middle of winter, or when I totaled the car, you remember that, Al? I could live with it because nobody was shooting at me. Those are the problems of life, and I'd already experienced things much worse. So my life was soft and comfortable because of that. And also on Iwo Jima, I learned the value of love. Strange for a Marine, love. But we all realized that our most important possession is our life. We're alive. We fight to stay alive. And without life, you have nothing. And nobody would ever trade his life for money or position or anything. But I saw young Marines risk their lives and deliberately give their lives for their friends because they love them. So that was the lesson I learned. Love is the most valuable thing in the world. Priceless. As a result, with my wonderful family, I've lived a very, very happy, long life. And I've never missed a birthday, a graduation, a school play, a recital, a football game, because all those things were so much more important to me than money, fame, or fortune. I made a living, but that was all I needed. And I just wanted to say that Iwo Jima was a terrible place. It was bad. I still feel honored and gifted to have been there. And that's all. I just want to thank you all for coming out here and greeting us. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Gold Star wives, mothers, families, distinguished guests, legislators, my brother and sister veterans, Americans all, Marine Ms., and Marine Larry. I bring you the greetings today of the Massachusetts Veteran Service Officers Association and our president, Patrick George, from Watertown. Some colleagues of mine have joined us in the room today, and I'd like to acknowledge their presence as well. Our organization stands at the forefront, providing the very best in benefits and services and access to the young men and women of the Commonwealth who return home from faraway lands to their state and their loved ones. We have a long and proud history of doing that, going back to World War II, and we are proud to continue that tradition today. We are the only state in America that has a program such as this, and we are very, very proud that we are recognized nationally as the state leader in veterans benefits. John, thank you for having us back. It's been a couple of years. I remember years ago we used to have a formation and a parade. We'd march up from Faneuil Hall, and up that little hill out there. I remember one time there was a Marine that stumbled a little bit, and Hank Norton grabbed one elbow, I grabbed the other elbow, and I said, listen, Marine, this is not a race. You can take a break. And he goes, no, I can't. You see that Marine over there? I said, yeah. He goes, he's older than me. He'd never let me live it down if I stopped. But that's the type of men that we talk about today. These two men are representatives of that breed. The service officers like me have been privileged over the years to sit across our desk from these men, like Larry Tasker and Pete Santoro, who was wounded twice in Iwo Jima. It gives us great pride to see our fellow citizens represented in such a manner by you two fine men right there. You set the standard for performance, for excellence, for integrity, for courage. Every Marine that's followed you has strived to emulate your behavior and your conduct as a Marine that day. So on behalf of the service officers across the Commonwealth, we thank you for your service. Welcome home.
That was a surprise. No wisecracks about the Marines. Hey, you know, he did make me think that about when we did the parades and everything. And I used to think that it was easier for you guys getting up Mount Suribachi than it is getting up Beacon Hill today. But you guys still do it. So now look we have a principal speaker today. Lieutenant General David Furness, and he's come all the way up from D.C. just to be with us and be the principal speaker. And Lieutenant General Furness is currently the Deputy Commandant for Plans, Policy, and Operations at Headquarters United States Marine Corps. He was commissioned a second lieutenant on May 16, 1987, upon graduating from the Virginia Military Institute. Throughout his career, he has served in a variety of command and staff billets in both the operating forces and the supporting establishment. There's a lot more here. I'm just going to skip down to he has participated in contingency operations in the Republic of Panama, and in the following named operations: Operations Provide Comfort, Operation Unified Assistance, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Operation Enduring Freedom.
First of all, two of my mentors, General Kelly, General Dunford, homeboys here in Boston, and they remind me all the time. And I talked to General Dunford 2 weeks ago, and I told him I was coming up here, and he said, well, remember, no matter the venue, no matter the circumstance, the first thing you say in Boston is remind everybody that the Yankees still suck. I know I'm pandering to the local crowd, but that's what he told me to do. So, good morning, Marines. I see a lot of you in the audience. It's great to be here. Quite frankly, I wouldn't be anywhere else at this moment in time. I think it's that important. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today in historic Boston, the very birthplace of our republic. And it's my profound privilege today to honor the legacy of valor and courage of our Iwo Jima veterans displayed 78 years ago this week. To all the elected representatives of the great Commonwealth who are in attendance today, thank you for being here and joining us for this celebration. To a fellow shipmate, Captain Tom Kelly, United States Navy, sir, we are honored to have you here today. Thank you. Tom is obviously a Vietnam vet and a recipient of the Medal of Honor, but thank you for your sacrifices and your many decades of service to the great nation. He wouldn't say it because every Medal of Honor recipient I've ever met is one of the most, they're among the most humble people on earth, but he's a true American hero. He lost an eye in combat as he placed himself at the point of maximum danger to accomplish a mission and to protect his fellow sailors. After returning from Vietnam, he had to fight to stay in the Navy when he was found no longer fit for service. He won that fight too, and would stay in the Navy for another 21 years. Sir, I salute you. I only wish that you had been a Marine because you sure fight like one. So, to Mr. Herb Chambers, another famous, extraordinarily successful Blue Jacket, thank you for joining us here today, sir. Your generosity and community service are to be admired and emulated. To Major General Gary Keefe, United States Air Force, thank you for your continued service to the community and to the nation. And thank all of our servicemen and women here today in uniform. To the Marine Corps League, the Red Jacket crowd, we call them. Thank you for the work of preserving our Corps' heritage and legacy, and for all you do in the community to really beat the drum of selfless service, which is what you all are about. And a key point that all Americans need to consider at this point in time. I'd like to also thank the Gold Star families in attendance today. I didn't know you were going to be here, but I know people are here. I can't. Most Americans don't know, but I commanded Marines in 7 times in combat and have lost over 100 in battle, and I've called every parent of every Marine or sailor I've ever lost, and you're always expecting a very horrible phone call, and you always get an uplifting one, so thank you. Most importantly, I would like to recognize our 2 Iwo Jima veterans and their families here with us today, Lawrence Kirby and Walter O'Malley. Thank you. It's because of your example and the extraordinary sacrifices of you and your comrades that we commemorate this battle and its deep, iconic meaning to the nation, but more importantly to the Marine Corps. 78 years ago this week, Marines landed on Iwo Jima, a remote, desolate sulfur island covered in black volcanic ash, a literal tiny speck in the middle of the vast Pacific Ocean. Yet, Iwo was a strategic piece of terrain, and it would be the first time that Marines would be landing on the sacred soil of the Empire of Japan. What was expected to be only a week-long mop-up operation became a brutal, savage slugfest that lasted for 36 days. Marines and sailors from the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Divisions faced a determined enemy of over 20,000 Japanese soldiers who had prepared for that moment in both spirit and action for nearly a year. In support of our Leathernecks were almost 800 naval vessels, carriers, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, troop ships, and all the support ships. In total, U.S. military personnel in support of Operation Detachment, the code name for the landings on Iwo Jima, numbered 250,000. Capturing the island meant the United States could continue its advance of sea, air, and land forces toward final victory against Japan. The Army Air Force needed Iwo Jima as an air base for fighter escorts for our long-range bombers. The island also doubled as an emergency landing strip to save crippled B-29s as they returned from bombing missions over mainland Japan. By war's end, 2,200 B-29s landed on Iwo Jima, saving over 25,000 airmen. The seizure of Iwo Jima would also allow American forces to establish naval and aerial blockades, isolating Japanese forces from the southern Ryukyus, thus enabling U.S. forces to seize Okinawa. However, the price for this piece of critical terrain would come at a significant cost in blood and treasure. Over 26,000 American casualties and nearly 7,000 Marines would pay the ultimate sacrifice. Out of the 21,000 Japanese defenders, only 216 would surrender and survive the battle. Iwo Jima was one of the few battles in World War II in which American forces suffered more casualties than than the enemy's. Think about that for a moment. It's a testament to the fanatical martial spirit of the Japanese defenders fighting in subterranean fortifications that honeycomb the entire island. And more importantly, it's a reflection of the sheer determination, tenacity, and disciplined ferocity of the Marines who had to seize that island inch by inch, tunnel by tunnel, cave by cave, rooting out a formidable foe whose only goal was to kill as many Marines before they succumbed themselves. 27 Medals of Honor were awarded to Marines and sailors for their heroism, many of them posthumously. No other battle in American history resulted in more Medals of Honor. Countless other acts of heroism and courage took place, leading Fleet Admiral Chester Nimitz to remark, "On Iwo Island, uncommon valor was a common virtue." The price was high indeed, but America's Marines persevered and prevailed. Iwo Jima has been called by many the supreme test of the United States Marine Corps. Even today, nearly 80 years later, when people around the world think of what it means to be a United States Marine, they think about the dark sulfur sands of Iwo Jima and the iconic image of the flag raising over Suribachi. This battle showed the world how our Marine Corps could overcome any hardship, bear any burden, sustain any cost, and defeat any foe. Our Marines fought in broken terrain of Iwo Jima against Japanese defenders in near perfect defensive positions, hidden away in trenches, caves, tunnels, pillboxes, and the dominating slopes of Mount Suribachi. For many of the Marines of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Divisions, it was to be their baptism of fire, their first taste of combat. The actions of the Marines on that small volcanic island define the ethos of our Corps for generations, and it continues to shape who we believe we are today. It has even shaped the wars I fought in, to include the recent war in Iraq. On the eve of the Battle of Fallujah in 2004, the commanding general of 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, Lieutenant General John Sattler, circulated among his young Marines who would lead the attack the next day. Soon, Marines would fight their way into the darkened streets and buildings of Fallujah, filled with mines, booby traps, thousands of ruthless and heavily armed insurgent fighters. They, like their Marine forefathers, were prepared to give their lives for our nation, and more importantly, for their fellow Marines. The general tried to reassure the Marines of his confidence in them, the importance of their mission, and tremendous support that they would have from every available U.S. asset in theater, and of course from their fellow Americans here at home. But it was a young Marine who did the reassuring as the weight of history bore down on their young shoulders. Sensing the general's unease, a young Marine's upbeat voice shouted out of the darkness, "Don't worry, General, we took Iwo Jima. Fallujah ain't shit." Now, two things stand out about that incident. First, a young Marine whose grandfather was probably not even born until after the Second World War, considered Iwo Jima the most meaningful example of what is expected of Marines in battle. Secondly, he said, "We took Iwo Jima," connecting his generation and what they would accomplish in the days and weeks ahead with what Marines 3 generations earlier had accomplished on that island. That, in my mind, is the essence of our Corps, the connection and responsibility we all share with those who have gone before to uphold and dignify our most cherished possession, the title Marine. Joe Rosenthal's famous photograph of the flag raising on Mount Suribachi represents a stirring tribute to all Marines who have fought and died for this country, not just on Iwo Jima, but before and after that bloody battle. That's why at the base of the Marine Corps War Memorial in Arlington National Cemetery that depicts the iconic Rosenfeld photograph is listed every battle that Marines have fought in since the founding of our nation. We know that Secretary of the Navy James Forrestal, who stood on the invasion beaches when the first flag was raised on top of Mount Suribachi, was so moved by the event that he remarked to General Howland Mad Smith, "Holland, the raising of that flag on Suribachi means a Marine Corps for the next 500 years. Today, that image is synonymous with American heroism, determination, and greatness. The Marines on Iwo Jima set the standard that our Corps will always strive to uphold. The battle is emblematic of who we are and what the nation needs us to be today, tomorrow, and for as long as there is a United States Marine Corps. The reverence we hold this battle and the men that fought there won't ever fade, even as fewer of our Iwo vets remain to provide living testimony of this battle like we witnessed here today. Iwo Jima captures the mind, body, and soul of the Marine Corps. We are blessed to have veterans here today, absolutely are, that represent the best of the old breed. Despite the uniqueness of their lives and past experiences, they share an ironclad bond forged in the harsh crucible of combat through shared suffering and adversity. Gentlemen, Walter, Lawrence, thank you again for your sacrifices and continued service to our nation. Just as America did not seek war in 1941, we do not seek war today, but it is the duty of the Marine Corps to be ready for war at all times. The 82nd Congress affirmed in law that the nation's shock troops, your Marines, must be the most ready when the nation is generally least ready to provide a balanced force in readiness for a naval campaign and at the same time a ground and air striking force ready to suppress our nation's enemies across the globe. Those words are as true today as they were in 1952. But what does it mean to be most ready now or in the future? The Marine Corps today must be prepared to project lethality at ranges that used to be the realm of carrier air wings. Our future force must fight and defend itself not only on land, in the air and sea, but also in the electromagnetic, space, and cyber battlefields that were unimaginable just a few decades ago. You might wonder then, what is the role of the individual Marine? Well, I'm here to tell you that the fundamental value of the Marine Corps still centers on locating, closing with, and destroying the enemy. While technology has changed and will continue to change, the fighting spirit of your Corps has not. War is and will always remain a vicious, nasty contest of wills. The World War II generation, our greatest generation, prevailed by the strength of their will and a commitment to fight until the battle was won. Our Corps today has not forgotten those lessons. The new technologies the Marine Corps is fielding are just tools. They are nothing if they are not backed by a fighting Marine who wields them with grit, ferocity, and determination. In the end, history bears out that the fight comes down to warriors in the dirt, in the mud, or sand, each willing to fight until the death. Missiles and bombs can't seize terrain. Only soldiers and Marines do that. In the unending chain connecting our past to our present, these warriors, our Iwo Jima veterans, remain an enduring source of pride and inspiration to everyone who has ever wore the Eagle Globe and Anchor and claimed the title United States Marine. Lawrence, Walter, thank you for your steadfast loyalty and dedicated service to the nation and the values that we represent. Thank you for the honor of joining you here today. I am truly humbled to be in your presence. May God bless you and your families, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you, and Semper Fidelis.
You know, just following up on what the General had to say, for me, Iwo Jima Marines were like our spiritual forefathers. They set the standard for Marines that was shown in Korea, Vietnam, and today. But you guys also did something else. When you got out of the Marine Corps, you came home, you led lives that were productive, you contributed to our country and Commonwealth and community with your service there. You just didn't stop with the Marine Corps, so you've been a great example to all of us. Having said that, we're now moving to the second part of our ceremony, and it won't last that long. But what we have done, we've been doing this since the year 2000, and we thought it was appropriate to give out two awards, the Semper Fidelis Public Servant Award and the Gung Ho Community Service Award. We wanted to acknowledge people that have been doing outstanding work that helps to make our country a better place. And for Marines who sacrifice so much, not only for their buddies, but for the country, you want the country to be the best that it can possibly be. And that's why we give these awards out. And we do it here in front of you folks who have done so much. So our first award recipient is Major General Gary Keefe, who's the head of the Massachusetts National Guard. So I had a big, long biography I was going to read, but we're just going to say the general's something else. And the Massachusetts National Guard is known as the nation's first. It was the first military organization in our country's history. And the National Guard has dual missions. It has a federal mission and a state mission. So under General Keefe's command, we've sent troops over to Iraq, Afghanistan, they've been to Kosovo, to Africa, all over the place. But on a local level, they help fight COVID. They helped out at the Holyoke Soldiers Home. They've driven buses. They've been up, I believe, in Lawrence when they had the gas explosion up there. They've done a number of different things. And I give credit. And there's 9,000 of those people in the Guard. So I give a lot of credit to the general. I'm getting his award. I'll be right back. So, General, this is the Semper Fidelis Public Servant Award. We wanted to present it to you in acknowledgement of all of your great work and all that the Guard has done.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be brief. First of all, I can't thank John enough, not just for this award, but for everything he does, not just for Marines, but for veterans throughout the Commonwealth. The guy never stops, and John, thank you so much. I also want to thank, as mentioned earlier, you will not find another state that does what Massachusetts does for its servicemen and women, veterans, our families. And I know we got a lot of state senators and representatives and folks from the executive offices in here today. Thank you so much for keeping #1, Massachusetts taking care of its servicemen and women. Finally, I want to thank these two gentlemen for setting the benchmark, the greatest generation. You will forever be the marker of which all others are measured, and not just men and women in uniform. If you think just what the nation did to fight World War II in 2 hemispheres and beat the Axis, so thank you, gentlemen. I only hope I look as good as you do. Even when I just hit 60, I hope to look as good as you do. Finally, I want to thank the Marines and the sailors, the soldiers, the airmen, Coast Guardsmen that are here today. The DNA of all the services is wound in you. And you've heard me, some of you have heard me say this before, but I'll even bring it forth. When these gentlemen went forward, it was probably around 90% of America's fighting men, citizens that went to war. When I got commissioned in 1986, and Dave in 87, it was about 15%. Now we're less than 1/2 a percentage point serve the United States military. And looking at you folks here, we've got the right people wearing the uniforms of all the services. So hold your heads high. You're as lethal and as professional as ever. I just want to say thank you. I want to thank you for raising that right hand, taking an oath. And it's a great term, I heard General Kelly say one time, and having the steel and the backbone to fight the nation's wars, win them, and keep America that beacon of hope that everyone in the world wishes that they had. Thank you so much. Thanks, John.
Thank you, General. Our next award is the Gung Ho Community Service Award. Gung Ho is an expression that is often associated with the Marine Corps. It's derived from the Chinese and it means work together. And that definitely is a Marine Corps trait. But Herb Chambers, who's the recipient of this award, also embodies that. And again, I have an extensive biography of him, but I'm going to cut it short. Some of the things that we most recognize about Herb is that he grew up in Dorchester. So we like that. Then he joined the Navy. Now, it seems a little strange for me to give an award to a Navy guy, but it just shows how much we think of him that we're giving him this award. So Herb, after getting out of the Navy, had several different jobs, started a copy, sold it, got into the car business, became very successful, but he never forgot where he came from and how to help people. And I have about 4 to 5 pages of different nonprofits that Herb has contributed to. And that has a rippling effect that has helped so many different people. So without going into anything else about it, I'm going to ask Herb to come up and accept the award. So. This is a good back, and then I'll let you speak.
Well, first of all, I have to tell you that I am very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable being recognized for doing something that I think pretty much everybody does. You know, we get so many requests for different charities, things, everything from a softball team to supporting military organizations in the Boston area. And I think that all of this contributes. Well, first of all, today has been an enlightening experience for me. I've always admired Marines. I was in the Navy, and if I'm going to renew I think I probably would have become a Marine. And especially when I see you guys sitting over here. And you know, you look around at a day like today, you two fellows who fought this tremendous battle that I knew so little about until today. And we're all familiar with Iwo Jima, and I was probably 4 years old or something like that when it happened. And I didn't do very good in school, so maybe they taught people about it. I missed that class. But in speaking this morning, Iwo Jima was like, we're raising the flag on this mountain, and there's a bunch of people that are standing around it. But more than that, in all honesty, I didn't understand a lot about it. I didn't know how big it was, and I didn't know why it was so important. But I do now. You know, it was so critical that our aircraft could make it over there to Japan, but they couldn't make it home. They needed a landing base, and Iwo Jima was it. I didn't even think that they had an airport there. So today is really a very enlightening thing to me. And what the people, you guys went through is I can't even imagine, it's 50 or 100 years ago, but I'm sure it's crystal clear in your mind as to what the whole thing was about. But fast forward into my world today, and I think I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And I tell that to everybody. You know, I talk about my career in business, and you know, I never finished high school, and then went in the Navy, and I realized that I had made a huge mistake, and I got involved in USAFI courses to get a high school equivalency, and then to get a college equivalency. And I thought that that would be very important. And it was something that my family never spoke about going to college or something like that. That was not important. But once I got into the military and I saw officers and so forth, and I said, why can they do that? There was one particular fellow that I saw. I was stationed, I went to travel the world in the Navy. I got stationed at South Weymouth Naval Air Station. So I saw a very young fellow. I was, you know, at that time, 17, 18 years old, and he looked younger than me. And he would walk by me, and I saluted him. He saluted me back, and went down to the hangar 2 or 3 days later, and I saw this fellow coming out in a jumpsuit, and it had 47 zippers on it. He looked like Top Gun. And I was cleaning the wheel wells of the airplane that he was going to take. And I saluted him and so forth, and he got...